But you go to
It's
do
like,
it,
oh,
and it's
that looks
like,
easy.
oh, you might cut your finger off.
Yeah. That's the singer spitting in the microphone, and you're hearing the spit hitting the mic. How do people get their education in audio? Who knows? Everyone's got, I'm sure, a different path they took when they first get started, or they're on it now, and you think about, okay, well, you got education, like going to school education, like the book here, right? It's a book. You read the book.
You could read books.
Yeah. But then there's experience, which means you actually did it.
Right.
You didn't read about it, you did it. And they're two different things, even though you kind of, when you look at it, you can mix them up.
It sounds similar enough, but they're very much different things. I think the education helps you if you do end up getting experience, but you kind of need the experience either way if you really want to be on the right path. If you're trying to find your audio nirvana, you probably need the experience, and education is helpful, but without the experience, it's very limiting.
Well, I think the best example is when people are like, they read what other people are saying about audio, but they can't equate it to physical experiences they had because they never had them. Yeah, so
no
until
reference.
they actually hear it, I was like, oh, so that's what they meant by that term, right? So yeah, you need like to put them together,
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult to figure out which one should necessarily go first, because it probably is helpful if you have a basic understanding, if you have some degree of education, to go to a trade show or something like that and listen to headphones and kind of help to understand what these people are talking about on the forums. But it isn't necessary.
I would say it helps though, because at least you kind of know, what
It
you're doing.
definitely helps.
Yeah, you're not like starting off at, all right, I don't know anything, I'm just going to dive right into this.
Yeah, because you could read the forums and you could kind of get an education that way. You could have an understanding of what people commonly say and do and how they talk about different things and the verbiage and the languages used and pros and cons of different methods and approaches or whatever. But without actually hearing it and understanding it, it is very difficult to grasp. And I think this is something that's difficult to translate. If you don't have the experience, I think just talking about it doesn't really tell people what they need to know without experience.
I think I have an example of that. Like I was on the phone with a customer the other day, and he's got I think he bought them used. He got a pair of 1266s,
Yeah.
And he was telling me a little story, and he was saying, and this is jumping way ahead of where we are in this video, but let's just start there and we'll work backwards. It's kind of reverse engineering the difference, right? And he was saying, well, I was on the forum, I was telling some guys, I hear this noise, and when I'm listening, and I wonder what that is. And he gave the guy a track or whatever to listen to, and the guy's like, that's the singer spitting in the microphone, and you're hearing the spit hitting the mic. And he's obviously never heard that before with any other headphone. Right, to this point, he's like, I can't even believe I could hear that. And he said, well, yeah, so we get that a lot. You hear things in the recording you never heard before, and that's something that you could read about, but I don't think you completely understand, that how you could be transported back to that point in time when the damn thing was recorded to such a level,
Well, I think it is difficult in that context to really grasp what that sounds like without experiencing it.
You think something's wrong, like something's like, what is that?
Right.
It's like
so
weird noise.
That definitely is one of those situations where you kind of need both. Having the experience to understand that these things could happen, or some physical object could strike the diaphragm in the microphone and cause it to read something that you might not expect to be there. Understanding that could happen and actually hearing it are very isolated. They're very different things.
Well, I guess it's kind of like reading cookbooks and watching people make food, but never cooking yourself.
Or tasting what you cook.
Yeah, it's like, you won't just, okay, I read all I could on it, now I'm a professional chef.
Yeah, I don't even, right. And I don't even know if you could call that two-dimensional. It's probably like 1.5 dimensions, because it's not like,
It's basically the same thing.
It's very flat. It's like there's no...
Like, you know what you need to do, but you've never done it.
Yeah.
You most certainly could cook without having any education, without having any experience, without having anyone to tell you what to do or how to do it. You could figure it out. People have done that, of course. But it's pretty clear that having a basic understanding of common practices and how to make things that other people have made is helpful.
I remember the first time I had to separate the egg whites from the yolk.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, why the hell do you need to do this? And I don't remember if the same things went back together in the end or not, but the same recipe. But I guess one was used for one and one was used for something else. But, you know, I'm thinking it seems so crazy when you think about it and you're trying to figure out how to do it. But yeah, doing it is totally different. And, oh, that sounds easy enough. And then until you break the eggs open and go to it.
Well, yeah. Well, especially like, you can't watch a video on how to like cut anything like a chef. You know, you can watch someone doing it, but you go to do it and it's like,
easy.
oh, you might cut your finger off. You know, it's all
Easily.
coordination. You know?
Yeah, it is wild, but that's true, and that's true. I mean, you know, when you think about that's where experience comes in. Okay, you got the education, now you need to apply it. It's kind of like coming out of college. We talked about this years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you come out of college with an engineering degree, but you don't know shit. And I remember some guys commented who were in college. It was a TA and somebody else commented in a video. He's like, ha ha, blah, 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 a bunch of bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you're still in college. How do you know? You haven't experienced it yet. You know?
Well, I think everybody in the industry would tell you that that's true. I think it'd be very, very hard to find someone that says otherwise.
Yeah.
That's the reality. You come out of college, you think you know a lot. You start working, you still think you know a lot. You come to figure out, hopefully, you don't know that much. And there's a lot you need to catch up on.
Yeah.
And it's not only the best practices and what other people do. You kind of need to figure out the ground truth, what actually happens in practice rather than the theoretical implementation. That matters. But on top of that, there's a lot of things that you didn't quite grasp and understand fully because you didn't see how it was actually done. You didn't really understand the practical application or whatever, depending on exactly what you're talking about. But it's kind of the same thing here. Knowing the hows of the whys and stuff like that, it helps. It's not required, but it definitely helps. You kind of need a blend of both to really do it right.
Yeah, actually, that's true. Mix. You need a mix.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, the education can come first. It could come later, and vice versa. You know, you think about it, I don't think it matters which order you take it in.
Probably not that much. I think it would be helpful if you kind of blend them both in, but obviously for most people that's kind of impractical. There's limitations with that. It's usually easier to get the education, especially now. You can kind of get a vague idea of all the hardware in the industry and stuff like that from your home now. And actually listening to it, well, bit of a different story.
If funds aren't a big limiting factor, go right for it. The hell with education, go for experience.
The experience probably matters more.
Yeah.
But without the education, the experience isn't quite as profound. I think it's difficult to convey your thoughts, to try to understand what you're seeking if you don't have both the experience and some degree of education.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons we do these videos is to educate people. And I mean, because we're coming at it from a highly experienced side of it, I think the way we educate is conveying the experience, even though you might have never experienced it before. You know,
to the best of our ability.
Yeah, right. It's still just jabber in the end.
It's
you
definitely
try it.
off the cuff jabber. Yeah.
But to me, I think it's more powerful than it is reading something that somebody did and not really having a context to it. And
yeah, I mean, I come up with, like, whenever I get in a new hobby, I usually research it for a while, and then until you actually, start doing it, you're like, oh yeah, I see what he was saying. Yeah, you hit those points where it's like, oh yeah, it does matter.
Usually it's pretty obvious,
like,
actually. Yeah. You read about this stuff and you think, what are they talking about? Then you do it and you go, oh yeah, that's what they were talking about. So.
And that's, I think in a nutshell, that kind of separates the two words right there, experience and education.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
You need a bit of both.
Yeah, both is good.
Well, I guess we are part of the audience's audio education,
Yes.
Well, trying to be,
Yep.
And hopefully you'll learn a thing or two from this video and other videos in the future. Subscribe to us if you want to see more content like this, and thanks for watching.
Thank you.